SR78. So we wanted to give you an update today on where construction is on the I-5 on I-5 and some of the rail improvements. And then we'll talk a little bit about where some of the 78 studies are off and running. So let's start with Build NCC. That's what everyone sees out when you drive the corridor today. And basically we're extending the carpool lanes from Loma Santa Fe all the way up to SR78, as well as adding additional rail capacity in Cardiff and additional bike paths. And lastly, in restoring the San Alejo Lagoon down here in Cardiff. So it's an $850 million job. Very unique partnership between Caltrans, Sandag, NCTD, and also a joint venture with a large construction firm with Skanska, Stacy Whitbeck, and Flatiron. A lot of the components, we started in 2017. A lot of the components are actually operational. The rail improvements are complete. Bike improvements are complete in Cardiff. Most of the heavy civil engineering, the civil construction in the lagoon is complete. And the carpool lanes are the remaining feature that's still under construction. When all is said and done, this project will deliver 13 miles of new carpool lanes, 1.5 miles of additional double track for the Lausanne corridor, 7 miles of bike and pedestrian facilities, and over 1,200 acres of restored and preserved coastal habitat. So I share this photo for a couple of reasons. It is in Cardiff. This is at Manchester. One of the big questions that people have been asking is how has COVID affected the construction? And this photo has some good news in that the cranes are there, and really, even though you're in Carlsbad hoping for the carpool lanes to get through Carlsbad, this structure is the critical path to open the facility. So 5 or 6 miles to the south, this really is the important link that crosses the lagoon and allows us to open the entire thing. And construction is proceeding on schedule. These cranes have showed up in the last couple of months, about 6 weeks. They're building the last remaining bridge that sort of closes that gap between the two facilities, the northbound and the southbound. Interestingly enough, those columns that you see out there when you drive by, they're about 240 feet deep. So it's about a 20-story building. Some of the largest columns, they're 10 foot in diameter. The foundation's 10-foot diameter, 240 feet deep. Some of the largest ones we've ever built in San Diego. So the good news is the construction's head is on schedule and COVID hasn't affected that. Interestingly enough, the other reason I like showing this photo is this is Friday afternoon, probably early April. We probably, I guess, hopefully never see the freeway this empty on a Friday afternoon. But you do see and I'll show you a slide a little later on, during sort of late March, early April, volumes were about 70% of normal, about 30% of normal, 70% reduction. As we head up further north, some of the major successes we've had in the last few months, we've completed the inside widening, and now we've shifted traffic back to the inside so that we can do some additional outside widening. But this was a major milestone. It's about a 50% complete on that section. This would be between, well, this is at La Costa, at Bataquitas. But this section runs all the way from Manchester all the way up to Palomar Airport Road is under construction. And it looks very similar the whole way. Obviously, COVID has been a challenge. Really want to applaud everyone's effort working together. The contracting industry, the subcontractors, laborers, everyone's been great. I always talk about construction being a team sport. And it's really hard to do it 6 feet apart. But everyone's really pulling together, and we really haven't had a major slowdown. We were worried about subcontractors and suppliers being able to keep pace. I think that was a worry in sort of late March or early April, but that really hasn't materialized. And you see projects throughout the county and state moving ahead on schedule. This is an exhibit that just kind of highlights what happened to traffic and where it is today. And so this would be your average for March. You can see right here the shelter in place. It was about 30% of normal. And then by the time we got to last week in March, early April, it was about 60% of normal. And these volumes are countywide on the freeway. And then you can see it sort of inching back up. Over the last month, since we've entered phase 2, we've been at about 30% of normal. So it has climbed back up as businesses restart and people get more comfortable going out. But I would say over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's plateaued at about 30% of normal. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes in the next month. One of the things we've been trying to do is take advantage of that, if there's a silver lining, by moving as much construction into that time frame as possible, maybe giving contractors extended work windows. Normally, because we don't want to cause any congestion on the freeway, they have very limited hours where they can take lanes. With less volume, we allow them to work a little bit earlier in the morning, start earlier at night. Instead of starting at 9 o'clock at night, maybe they can start 7 or 8, and then finish a little bit later in the morning. This gives them a full work window. But we'll just continue watching it and monitoring it and see how long that lasts. You know, we talked about that bridge being the critical path. It's hard to make that bridge go faster because people ask, you know, hey, if you're accelerating this work, does that mean we get to open to traffic sooner? On this project, probably not. On some projects, probably yes. But on this project, since it's so much bridge work, it's really not a function of traffic. But the advantage of trying to pull as much work into this period as possible is it'll reduce future disruption, improve safety for the traveling public. So there is definite advantages to try to get some stuff done now. One sort of unforeseen challenge we've had with construction is just increased speeding. People really did enjoy the free highway, the open highway, maybe to the extreme. And so we have been having really focused safety campaigns in partnership with CHP to get people to slow down in the construction zone. The speed limit is 55 in the corridor in construction. We were having tickets. We'll do enforcement in the daytime hours with CHP. During a 4-hour period, they probably had 40 tickets. And these were folks going over 80, 85. We've had a few. Every day we tend to have a few at over 100 miles an hour. And so we have been working, trying to get that public outreach out there. So the last piece that's not yet under construction, which is I'm sure near and dear to Carlsbad, obviously, is getting it from Palomar Airport Road to 78. And the good news is that construction that design is complete. We are entering into negotiations with the contractor right now, and we hope to break ground in September. As I mentioned, that bridge back there at Cardiff is the critical path. And so we've been phasing the work so that it all gets wrapped up about when that bridge gets done. So it is sort of an orchestrated ballet. This last piece is one of the easier pieces relative. It doesn't have much bridge work on it. So from a contractor's perspective, it's pretty easy to get it done in probably about 18 months. It has some elements. It has sound walls in it. It has a community enhancement feature at Chestnut to work under there and to make that a more pedestrian active transportation friendly. If you've been in Encinitas, you see what's happened at Encinitas Boulevard underneath at I-5 and at Santa Fe, where we've provided a widened, we've sort of lengthened that area under there, and there's full standard sidewalks and bike paths now. And something similar is planned at Chestnut. One of the biggest challenges on this last piece is just funding. We've been working with the state of California to cash flow the project. Obviously, COVID and revenue and the impacts of COVID on revenue, transportation revenue, state and nationwide is huge and rather uncertain right now. So it's kind of a wait and see. You know, our focus is to get under construction, and we have no reason to think that we won't be under construction by early fall. But you know, it really is we've never been here before, so we're just kind of working our way through the financial ramifications of COVID. I wanted to touch a little bit on 78. And so when we talk about I-5, it does not include, the project that's under construction right now does not include 578. That is a separate project. Everyone, you know, the missing connectors there taking the signal out, that is a separate project. And more, we look at it as more part of the 78 corridor. And this exhibit just kind of provides a huge overview of the corridor. It gives it some context, right? Obviously, the corridors had tremendous growth since the early 90s, and the top of that, of the health report kind of shows that, highlights that. 42% increase in residents since the early 90s, 67% increase in employment. So obviously a lot more demands on transportation, a lot more need for mobility. You know, during those 20 years, you know, we did a lot of improvements on 78 that were Transnet funded in the beginning of the late 80s, early 90s. And that got us 25 years of good service. But obviously we see a lot of congestion out there on 78. So it's time to come up with a new vision that's a mix of both transit, highway, active transportation. So it's really trying to find a system of improvements on 78. I call it 78, but it's more of like the sub-regional area, because there is a lot of arterials and the Sprinter that play an important role in moving people through that corridor from Escondido to Oceanside. This is an exhibit, so you know, revenue is obviously a challenge wherever you are in transportation. So you know, making sure you're putting the investment in the most important places. Interestingly enough, on the 78 corridor, the east end of the corridor down there by Escondido, San Marcos really does experience a lion's share of the congestion on the freeway, as this exhibit shows. And really that's everywhere from Twin Oaks, say, to I-15 is really heavily congested. It's actually one of the top 5 bottlenecks in the county. So we talk about this systems approach to solving problems on the mobility problems in a region like the 78 corridor. And it's really all the partners coming together. We have SANDAG and the RTP and the 5 big moves. We have all the local city general plans. You know, they've got visions, transportation visions. The state has visions. The feds have objectives as well. So how do you marry all those in one seamless system of improvements? And that really is a change in transportation. If you go back 20 years ago, people just did sort of one project at a time. And this really is, you know, painting a blueprint for the next 20 years, which is difficult given the changes that are coming our way in technology. And you even see things like telecommuting. You know, I don't think we anticipated how telecommuting would impact mobility as much as it has the last eight weeks. Will that continue? Difficult to know, but it's a great thing to shoot for. So in concert with coming up with that vision, that system vision, that doesn't mean we're not progressing with a lot of other projects in parallel. In September, SANDAG's board added funding to the plan, to the regional transportation plan, to accomplish a few things. One was to start the design environmental clearance down here at 1578. We talked about how that area is a significant bottleneck. This would add connectors here and another 3 miles of express lanes, basically extending the I-15 express lanes. It added money to begin the environmental process for the express lanes that connect here all the way from Twin Oaks all the way to I-5. And that's a significant environmental document, probably take us about 5 years to do. And the idea there would basically, one additional lane in each direction from end to end, and very similar to how we manage I-15 in a priced facility, fast track facility. It did add some additional funds to begin the environmental document here at 578. Those monies aren't available for another 24 months, I believe. So that environmental document is a little ways off, but the good news is that money has been budgeted. In addition to the express lane projects, there's a number of what we call asset management projects in the corridor. It is a fairly older corridor, so that means its culverts are beginning to fail. Pavement needs to be repaved and so forth. So with last year's SB1, the sales tax or the gas tax increase, that's allowed us to do a number of asset management projects that you'll start seeing in the corridor. So that's kind of I-5 and 78 in a nutshell. And with that, I'll leave it open to any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Alan, for a really excellent presentation. I've gotten a couple of questions. I got a private question asking, is this presentation going to be available? Can you share this with the chamber?
Yes, no problem.
Great, thank you. And then I see another one here from J.R. Phillips. When you said on time for bridge completion, what did you mean? What would the completion date for the bridge be?
Yep, sorry about that. The idea would be to open to traffic by the end of 21. So 2021, we would get traffic all the way to 78.
Great. Thank you. I didn't see any other questions in the chat. We have a couple minutes. Is there anybody who wants to unmute and ask a quick question? Otherwise, we'll move on. Great. Thank you again, Alan and Caltrans. Yeah, I think we need to get this off the screen or stop screen share, if you wouldn't mind doing that. Great. The next presentation that we have is on the Carlsbad Station development. Who do we have speaking for that? I heard somebody in the introductions.
I think Arlene. Arlene, you're still muted, Arlene.
There it is. Okay. Hi, everyone. Let me get my screen pulled up for you. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, great. Sorry. Hold on. Okay. So my name is Arlene. Again, thank you for having me this morning. Chris McKellar is here as well. He is the CEO of McKellar McGowan, who's the developer. We're just going to walk you through our project. Would love to hear what questions you have. We are going to Planning Commission in a couple weeks. And so I'm really grateful to Brett for squeezing us in and allowing us to talk to you today. All right, so the location of the project is in the Village. It is on State and Roosevelt between Grand and Beach. I'm really happy to hear that so many transportation people are here today because we are directly across the street from the Village train station. A lot of the design of the project was done in order to really leverage the location of the property and really speaks to some of those regional goals about providing housing near transit. We are within the Village Barrio Master Plan. We do comply with the goals of the master plan. We're not asking for any amendments there. Okay. So this is a rendering of Roosevelt Street. We are proposing 79 new homes above shops and restaurants. It's mixed use. 15% of the units are designated for low-income households. The affordable units will be indistinguishable from the market rate. Because it's the Village and we know that it's such an important and special place to people, I do want to spend a little bit of time on our planning process. Sometimes in projects like this, it's not always the nuts and bolts of the project components, but in a place like the Village, how we got there and why is just as important as what we're proposing. So McKellar McGowan purchased the property in 2017, and we had 3 primary goals in mind. One was to design a place that would comply with the newly approved Village Barrio Master Plan. 2 is to complement the character of the village. You know, I mentioned there's these regional goals, but really marrying that with what makes the village small and quaint and special to Carlsbad. I think really finding that balance was important to us. And then providing market rate and inclusionary housing, especially given our proximity to the train station. So we started with a ton of research. This picture is from our office, our architect's office. You know, all of our research, the people, the places, the history, the background of the village really lined the walls of their office while they were designing it. All of these things combined with the city's governing documents really are what provided the foundation and the inspiration for Carlsbad Station. And then with that, looking at what's around us. So the Main Street aesthetic of the village was really important. So Carlsbad Station mirrors that aesthetic. You know, as I mentioned, you have the shops on the bottom floor, everything's really pedestrian oriented, and then the residences are upstairs. The architecture has been an important piece as well. And there's this big spirit of adaptive reuse and renovation happening in the village. So really looking to our neighbors to see what was around us, what's there now, what's coming, what's planned. You know, really looking at the materials that are used and making sure that we complement what's around us and that we're cohesive. These 2 images right here are Baba Coffee and Campfire. So really looking at, again, what's new, what's coming, but what's been there in the past. And the other part of that is scale and massing. So really looking at, you know, the building complies with the 45-foot height limit of the village, but in order to maintain that pedestrian experience, making sure that the massing on the street level didn't feel too imposing. So on State Street, it is going to be 1 story, and on Roosevelt Street, it's 3. Okay. This is a rendering of the State Street side. As you can see, the upper stories are set back. Again, that's to really maintain that pedestrian experience. Like I was mentioning with the architecture, we really incorporate a lot of the materials that you find already in the village. So a lot of reclaimed wood, brick, steel, things like that, that really provide a rich texture. And then also throughout the project is a series of open spaces and paseos. Right here, connecting State to Roosevelt to State is this pedestrian promenade. So I'll speak to this more in a moment, but really just being mindful of that pedestrian experience. Rebel Republic is a new eatery by Paul Hennessy. That'll be the new restaurant on State Street. For community character, we began our community outreach in August of 2019. I've been facilitating that. We hosted a community open house in September. And one thing that a lot of residents have shared with us is the importance of character and arts and culture in the village. So in response, we reached out to the leadership of the New Village Arts Theater. The theater is directly across the street. You have Carlsbad Station, and then across from us is the station and the train station and the theater. And they connected us with Brian Schneider. So we've really been looking at ways we can work together to incorporate public art into the project and really have this pedestrian promenade be kind of this link to the village, really opening up to that arts piece. We've identified this wall right here to start with. It's roughly 22 feet tall, about 100 feet long, and we're really just looking at ways we can do either murals or other ways to activate the space. This is another view of the promenade. You can see here on the site plan in the top right corner, it connects Roosevelt to State. We heard from some folks that safety was an important concern. So the promenade will have hours of operation. It'll be gated and it'll close at night and open in the morning, but otherwise it'll be open to the public. It'll also be landscaped, so in addition to the art pieces kind of sprinkled throughout, it'll be a really welcoming, inviting place for people to either cut through the project instead of having to go up to either Grand or Beach. Okay. Because of our proximity to the train station and just with the way the village is really such a walkable place, we paid a lot of attention to circulation and mobility and how we can get creative with this space. I already spoke about the pedestrian connections, so I won't spend a whole lot of time there. But we'll also be increasing the number of trees on both State and Roosevelt and lighting the providing lighting in those trees for safety and ambiance, and replacing the sidewalks fronting the project. We met with Marissa Mangan from Sandag to talk about 5 big moves and mobility hubs specifically, and she had given us the idea to incorporate a micro mobility fleet. So we are piloting that at McKellar McGowan's other project in the village called Carlisle, which Chris mentioned. And what that is just privately owned electric scooters that residents can borrow from the HOA to, cruise around the village, really just finding ways to encourage alternative modes of transportation. We do provide public and private bike racks. There are public racks on both State and Roosevelt. And then after meeting with Circulate San Diego, they encourage us to increase the amount of private bike racks that we're providing in our parking garage. So we've taken that recommendation as well. At the end of the pedestrian link, we're also including a public bike repair station as well, so that people who are choosing to ride their bikes, whether they're commuting or just cruising around the village, can use that too. We are providing 143 subterranean parking spaces. 135 is the requirement, so we are exceeding that. It's important to note all the parking will be underground. Again, that's part of the character piece that was really important to us, making sure that we're maximizing the space and not leaving just swaths of ugly parking lots. That'll all be underground. EV charging is provided for every residence, so that'll be 79 EV charging stations. 3 is the requirement. And according to our traffic study, we result in 181 fewer average daily trips compared to the existing uses there today. We presented to Circulate San Diego for the mobility certification in January, and they did certify the project, so we're really proud of that. I'm really just looking outside the box. As I mentioned, it's been really important to be mindful of what's happening around us, not only in the village, but in North County and in the region as a whole. So in summary, we are providing 79 new homes, including on-site affordable, which is rare in the village. We are not paying the in lieu fee for affordable. It's nearly 10,000 square feet of dining and neighborhood serving retail. We have the landscape pedestrian promenade connection, public and private bike facilities, on-site parking, generate less traffic. It's a biggie for people. And again, we feel like this location is, we're uniquely situated to address some of those local and regional goals. And we implement the vision set forth by the master plan. So any questions, comments?
Thank you, Arlene. This was such an informative presentation and obviously a very thoughtfully designed project. We do have some questions, and I'm going to read them in the chat, from the chat in the interest of time. So the first one from Jack Cumming was about the aesthetic and the exterior design. And yeah, we can make it look less factory-like and more home-like, more like a village. Is there any wiggle room with design?
At this point, no. That's interesting that you think it looks factory-like. I haven't heard that yet. Who is that? Do you mind saying the name again?
That was from Jack Cumming.
Jack Cumming, okay. Chris, do you want to speak to the design at all? Are you still on? No? Okay, I'll ask Chris. It's interesting. I haven't heard that feedback yet, so I apologize. I'm stumbling on my words a little bit.
I'm now unmuted.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Do you want to speak to the design at all? I know we spent a lot of time really making sure that we'd be, you know, cohesive in the village. But is there anything you want to add to?
Well, I was going to say it's, you know, the design is meant to be timeless. It's meant to be reuse, as we said, as we're trying to mirror, you know, that which is going on in a lot of urban areas that is successful and that people really enjoy. It is kind of, I suppose you could say it, the reuse of a factory instead of tearing it down. So we're going for that look, but I think you'll see that there's a lot of undulation. There's a lot of architectural play along the street. For instance, there's no length of building that's 40 feet or more without at least an offset. If you look at the site plan, you'll see quite a bit of play. If you've been to our Carlisle project at 800 grand, you'll see a lot of that interplay with the street up and back and up and down and just, you know, for architectural interest. It's the same architect, Robert Heidi, which is a world-renowned architect from for Orange County, from Newport. And we are just delighted at the way that Carlsbad Station, or the Carlisle has come out. And we are equally delighted, even more so with Carlsbad Station, as the way it looks, because that's how we're going to build it.
Thank you. Thank
If
you.
I can add one really quick thing, I want to be sensitive to time too, so I'm not going to take too much. But along the street, like Chris mentioned, there are a lot of places for looking at kind of like glass and natural light and really breaking that up. So yeah, I just wanted to add that too, that really being thoughtful about what the pedestrian would experience along as you walk along State and as you walk along Roosevelt was really important.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Teresa.
No problem. I know design's sometimes tough because it can be subjective.
Exactly.
So let me move along. There was a question from Shirley Anderson about parking, and I believe that you already answered it. Her question was, where will parking be for residential units and how many parking spaces? And you said it would be subterranean parking and that there would be 143 parking spaces, which for 79 units is about 1.8 per unit.
There you go.
Okay, great, thank you. In light of COVID, this is from Leila Panagitis. In light of COVID, what changes are you making for public safety, such as filtered HVAC units, airflow, antiviral materials, more plants, greenery, touchless features, etc.?
That's a good question. I don't think we haven't made any changes as a result of COVID. The project is designed with green building, up to all green building codes. We will be LEED certified. Chris, do you want to speak to like air quality or any of that kind of stuff? We haven't changed anything though, but everything's to code.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not sure I can add anything to that. We haven't made any, we made application with the city of Carlsbad in April of last year. And we are just now getting to the planning commission. It's been a long process, and we cannot make any changes. The planning department, we would effectively have to start over with. So, but we are very much hoping that if social distancing still goes forth, this project is going to be like any other. We're opening up 800 grand, and we are taking measures there, which is obviously we're going to have hand wash sanitation stations, and we're going to have elevators as well as stairs servicing, so people don't have to get on an elevator if that's still going on. Well, it will be for 800 grand because we're going to be opening, we're going to be having residents there in about 30, 45 days. So we're just hoping for the best, that it doesn't become, the pandemic doesn't last much longer, and that there will be a vaccine soon, as everybody is hoping. But we are fully compliant, obviously, with heating, ventilation, air circulation, and all that. And as you can see on the site plan, that there's everybody has a balcony, as everybody has access to the outside.
Great, thank you. We just have a couple more questions and then we can discuss our support for this. Do you anticipate problems? This is from Shirley Anderson. Do you anticipate problems with the subterranean parking? I guess something has happened at Carlisle in regards to problems with the parking.
What might that be?
I don't know. It says, do you anticipate problems with subterranean parking like what is happening at Carlisle?
I don't understand. Well, no, and I don't know what happened at Carlisle. Excuse me, yeah, at Carlisle.
Okay.
Maybe whoever has that question could tell me.
Shirley, if you, I only see a couple little faces on the side, but we have a community email address. It's info@carlsbadstation.com. If you want to reach out offline, I haven't heard of any problems at Carlisle either, but yeah, if you don't mind reaching out, happy to.
Yeah, what I'm referring to was an article that there was some kind of moisture or not necessarily flooding, but moisture in the subterranean parking area when they were digging for Carlisle, because Carlsbad does have a natural spring and it is close to that natural spring. That's what I was referring to.
Okay. Thank you. Chris,
We are well above the water table. We did not encounter any underground water during the excavation process at all, and we haven't had any leaking problems. We had no moisture on the walls. We're very careful to do all our proper waterproofing. So, knock on wood, water is a problem in construction, no doubt about it, but we haven't experienced that so far.
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for providing that email address, info@carlsbadstation.com, in case we have follow-up questions.
Wonderful. There's also a website too, carlsbadstation.com, just in case anyone wants to read more, and you can get in touch with us through the website too.
Great. All right, we've come to our last question in the chat. What will the interior be for the residents in reference to noise impact?
Go ahead, Chris. It's like noise attenuation.
To the interior, I don't know if you're saying noise impact. We've done noise studies and we haven't, and we're fine there. We're certainly within the standards. We did a vibration study having to do with the train station, the proximity to the train station. And we also are okay in that area. We're concerned that there might be, when trains are going by, that might impact the residents. So we did that study, and we're good there. The installation requirements today for noise transmission between floors and between units on the same level, and any impacts from the outside are all taken into consideration. Believe me, these are going to be for sale. Well, we don't want noise problems inside the building.
Thank you. Are they all for sale or some for lease?
They're all for sale.
Okay, great. I recognize that was another question from Matt Leonard that I'd forgotten. So they're all for sale.
It may be that the affordable, some would sell, some would rent. We're not sure about that.
Okay.
12 of them, by the way, for those of you who didn't want to multiply 79 times 0.15.
Sorry. Math lesson as well.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that last noise piece, Teresa Barnes works in that field, and she was asking if it's above or below 65 decibels. If you don't know, you can follow up.
I'd be happy to send you the noise study.
Okay, great. That's for Teresa Barnes. And Teresa, you can follow up via the email as well. So thank you for your presentation today. It's very helpful to have these kinds of projects presented to our committee. And as you know, our committee often takes positions by vote, and then we recommend to the board that they take a support or opposed position on a bill or a project. So this is one of those, and I'm happy to entertain a motion at this time for somebody who would like to move to support this project. And Arlene, you can end the screen share.
Oh, yes.
I'll move approval to support, recommend support to the board.
Is that Haley? Sorry.
Yes. Sorry, my video is off.
That's okay. And a second from
JR.
JR. So we've got a first from Haley and a second from JR. Do we have any discussion? And I can go ahead and call for the vote then. All in favor, please, I guess, put your thumbs up is the best way that we can all see. You can use the thumbs up on the reactions or your thumbs up. And then any opposed? You can unmute yourself to oppose. Great. So it looks like we've got unanimous support with abstentions from government officials and those representing government agencies.
Arlene, excuse me for jumping in here. So this would then go to our board of directors, which meets in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then after they take a position, then we would write a letter and get that all to you and to whomever we need to get it to. So you and I should just stay in contact.
Yes, please. And thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Again, if there's any questions or anything, happy to answer whatever you'd like. Brett has my information, but I'll also put it in the chat just so that you guys you have it easily accessible. So thank you. Do you mind if I just stay on to listen to the rest of the presentations? Is that okay?
Oh, of course, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So next on our agenda, we originally had the Visit Carlsbad effort. We're going to talk about that because, as you all know, with COVID-19, we've experienced lots of disruption in our tourism industry, but we're going to push that off to July because of a conflict. So we did have a request to speak from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Vartan, did you want to unmute and give a brief update?
Yeah, thank you so much, Teresa, and I'll keep this brief because I know we're limited on time. First, I want to sincerely thank Brett and the Carlsbad Chamber for all the work that you've done over the past couple months in helping small businesses in Carlsbad navigate as we all get through this COVID period. I know a lot of small businesses have been relying on the Chamber to get guidance and direction as to what to do. So thank you so much for all the work that Brett and his entire team at the Carlsbad Chamber have done. I know that you have received an in-depth presentation about the PPP program as well as the EIDL program from my colleague Jennings, but I wanted to provide you with a few updates on it. First, for the PPP program, I know that most people know what this is, but I'll tell you briefly. It's essentially a way that the federal government came up with to help employers keep their employees paid and connected to their small businesses as we go through this time period right now. The PPP program had initially about $350 billion. Congress re-upped it with about $310 billion in the next stimulus period. But now the program still has $100 billion in it. So if there are folks in Carlsbad who have not yet applied for the PPP program, I urge you to reach out to your community banks, to credit unions, to fintech companies to see if you would be interested in applying and get those loans. The way that it works is that you would calculate the payroll that you pay for your small business for a 2.5-month period. And once you get that loan, if you spend it for 8 weeks on payroll, for utilities, for mortgage interest or rent, then that loan amount would be forgiven by the bank and the federal government when it's over. So as I said, there's about $100 billion left in it. Congress has recently decided to take up action to allow small businesses to have a little more flexibility in how they spent it. As I said, right now, as it stands, you have 8 weeks to spend that money, but Congress just passed a bill that says that you would actually have 24 weeks to use the money. It has this legislation passed in the House. It still needs to get approved in the Senate, but we're really pushing to allow the small businesses to have more flexibility with it. Additionally, initially, and as it still currently stands, you have to spend 75% of that PPP money on payroll, but the House just passed a bill saying that you would only need to spend 60% of it on payroll, and the rest that you'd be able to spend on some of those other expenses that I talked about, and it would still be forgivable. So again, if you haven't applied for it, apply for it. It looks like Congress is going to take steps to make the funding a little more flexible for small businesses because they realize what a dire situation that small businesses are in right now. So beyond those federal programs, the loan programs, we are working on a few additional initiatives. And key into that is the return to work. We're encouraging, of course, the social distancing and the protective equipment, temperature checks, sanitation, use and disinfection of common and high traffic areas, as well as trying to come up with some guidelines on how we can return to business travel. So there are some key issues in that. It's what will the role of government be, or what will the role of employers be in testing, tracing, and health monitoring? It's still kind of a gray area right now. We're hoping to have some more direction on that. The other point is we're really encouraging governments at the local, state, and federal level to have more guidance and not regulations. I know the first reaction for government is to impose these regulations, but the point we're making to Congress is that small businesses are regulated enough. If somebody is only distancing 5'10" at a restaurant, we don't want the inspectors to come in and give a large fine to a small business saying, no, this is 5'10" and it should have really been 6 feet. So we're looking at issues like that. We're also hoping that there isn't a patchwork of rules from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We're hoping that if Carlsbad passes a guideline, it's in line with what the state of California is doing, so that, again, you won't have all these different rules, which would be very difficult for small businesses to comply with, just because of all the confusion that it would cause. Another point that we're really working hard right now is this legal liability issue. Unfortunately, we're living in such a litigious society right now that you're already seeing the ads on TV. Did you get COVID in the workplace? Did you get COVID when you visited a restaurant? What we're telling Congress is that in order to prevent some of these lawsuits, if a business takes all the necessary steps, if they're doing the social distancing, if they're providing hand sanitizer for their customers and for their employees, there should be some kind of mercy that we provide to these small businesses. Again, provided that they're taking all the necessary steps to be as safe as possible. And if they are, in case they get hit up with lawsuits by employees or from vendors or from customers, that there should be some kind of safe harbor for them. So those are some of the key issues we're working on. We are working on a letter that we want to send to Congress on this legal liability issue. Fortunately, in the Senate, Senator Mitch McConnell has said that he will not allow any additional stimulus packages to come through that does not address legal liability issues. He said that that's kind of a mark that he's not willing to pass. So, which is good news, because the last thing our small businesses right now is a myriad of lawsuits to prevent that. Again, another difficult as they try to get open again, especially now that we have these additional problems related to some of these protests that have gotten out of control. I think it's important that we protect our small businesses right now.
Thank you.
So again, I said I'm going to keep this brief. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation and update. There's one quick question before we move on. I know we have tight time and still a few things left on the agenda. So the question is, has it been suggested enter at your own risk to save small businesses?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The question from Teresa Barnes is, has it been suggested enter at your own risk to save small businesses?
You know, it's not, we're not saying enter at your own risk. What we're saying is the business should be providing all these tools necessary to keep their employees and customers safe. And as long as they take all those steps, there should be that safe harbor. But I will take your suggestion back to our folks. But they want to say, like, they don't want everybody to be willy-nilly about it. They want everybody to take those steps to protect their customers and employees.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fartan, and you're always welcome here at our meetings to give an update. We're going to move on. We're going to switch on the agenda. The job killer bills will move to after the ledge reports. We've got a lot of legislative reps here today, and we want to make sure that we give them a chance to update us on the top the top level issues that they're working on. And I can't see all of them right now, so I'm just going to call their names. And if you're here, please unmute and speak. So we'll start with Congressman Mike Levin's office. Kyle, are you here? I didn't see Kyle. He wasn't here at the beginning, and he's not unmuting now. So we'll move on to Senator Pat Bates. I did see Matthew.
Good morning, everyone. This is Matthew from Senator Pat Bates' office. First, I wanted to start out with our office has just seen an incredible amount of cases relating, obviously, to the Economic Development Department, the EDD. We continue to work through just literally hundreds of those cases. I know it's still very difficult for a lot of people to get through to that department, but please send them our way if you know of anyone that is having trouble calling them, trying to get a hold of them. I know the phone lines are still incredibly packed. It's almost near impossible just to get a hold of somebody on the phone. But we are still working through those. So again, please refer them to us. The legislature did start back up their session. They were kind of off during the COVID months, and we're seeing right now a lot of remote committee hearings. The senator participated in some of those by Zoom, just like this last week. But we're still conducting our meetings. The senator actually met recently with folks from Legoland as they kind of plan to get back in operation. So it was very interesting to hear their kind of comprehensive safety plan. It was very impressive, very thorough. And so we were very glad to see that, and also do whatever we can to aid them as they work towards reopening. On the legislative side, I did want to share, I'll share it in the chat with all of you, piece of the senator's legislation that's been making some waves. It's SB 1090, and this piece of legislation would require the Coastal Commission to approve a public agency's or homeowner's application for erosion mitigation efforts for planting, drainage, and seawall or shoreline protective device installation, but that's only if certain requirements for coastal mitigation are met. And if the commission grants a permit to this applicant, the applicant would also pay for a specified amount of sand replenishment and permit processing costs. So we were actually very happy to see that in committee when the senator brought this up, that the committee chair, Senator Stern, from the majority party, opened up the door and told Senator Bates that he wanted to work together with her on a solution. And so we're very hopeful that moving forward, we can find some common ground on this. It's a very hot topic, especially in our district that covers so much coastal area. It's an entirely coastal district. So this is something that's going to be coming up more and more as we get through the years here. So it's going to be a very important topic to many homeowners, many businesses. And the senator was very pleased that Senator Stern opened that door and said that he'd like to work with her to really accomplish something in this. So I'll share a couple of those links with you all in the chat. The op-ed that the senator wrote on this piece of legislation that was in the Coast News. It ran in the Coast News, as well as just the press release that she had on the piece of legislation detailing a little bit more about it. But with that, we're continuing to do everything as we can in these times, and even though things are a little bit different in terms of the committees, it's nice to see that people are still able to add comments and still be a part of the legislative process.
Great, thank you so much, Matthew. And we do appreciate if you use the chat. If there's anything you forgot to mention or any links to bills or information that you'd like to share, you can just put it in the chat, addressed to everybody, and that way we can all see it. So thank you. I'll move on to Assemblymember Tasha Burner Horvath. I think Alex is on the line. Do you want to unmute, Alex? Let me double check if she's still here. I don't see her, and I don't hear her. So we'll move on to Supervisor Jim Desmond. I think we've got Crystal on the line. Do you want to unmute?
Good morning again, everyone. Thank you for having us. And I want to first start off by saying it's been very busy on the county level, and I want to say thank you to the Carlsbad Chamber and the amount of work and effort they've put into assisting the supervisor in his efforts to get the messages out. It's been incredible, all of our chambers. So thank you. A lot happened at the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday. Along with all their normal action items, Supervisor Desmond made an additional motion under our COVID-19 item, and it was a three-part motion. The first part asking for a report on how to protect our most vulnerable populations. So as the county begins to ease restrictions on businesses and activities, we want to be mindful that there is still a very vulnerable population, those in congregate care, are homeless, some of other people. We want to be mindful in that we're keeping our eye on that population so we don't have a resurge and impact our hospitals. The second part was, so there's different guidances. Some are governor state orders for our restrictions, and some are county public health officer. One of the items that is under the purview of the county health officer are our beaches. So we, the Board of Supervisors made a motion to fully reopen beaches as long as the local municipality, so Carlsbad beaches, would be open under the guidance and when the city of Carlsbad is ready to reopen them. So what they would do is put together a safety plan, which they've already been working on. They work with the public health officer probably on a daily basis for a plan to reopen beaches, including parking lots and different activities, boardwalks. Every city's boardwalk is a little bit different, so whatever they feel is safe to reopen. So that power is being given back locally to those cities. And then the last part was a letter being sent, much like our attestation plan and our pilot program was, up to the governor to request a full reopening of hotels, motels, nail salons, wineries, breweries, churches with proper social distancing, theme parks following their safety plans and social distancing, youth sports, charter and fishing boats, pools, museums, and all the other businesses that were in the pilot program. So hopefully that letter will go up to the governor today from the Board of Supervisors making that request. And hopefully we get a response very quickly. So that's kind of what happened yesterday. Today is another land use board meeting, so probably won't be any COVID related items. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Or if something comes up later, you can go through the chamber. Brett or anyone else at the chamber knows how to get information to us.
Thank you, Crystal. And if you'd like to put any emails, addresses, or website links in the chat box, you're very welcome to do that for people. Thank you. Let's move on to the City of Carlsbad. Jason, have you joined us? I didn't see anybody, but he may have joined. I don't see him. Okay, we'll reach out to him for an update as well. Great, so now we're ready for our updates from our Vice Chair of Public Policy and Board Member Catherine Magana.
Okay, hello everybody. So one of the things I wanted to bring up was the split roll on the November ballot. I know JR brought it to our attention in the past. It looks like that will be on the November ballot, so definitely something on our radar for further discussion. And once again, what that means is the split roll would change the property tax rate on commercial properties to reflect the current value. Under the Prop 13, the property taxes are based on the property's last sales price with an annual increase of 2% or inflation, whichever is lower. And so this would obviously change that. So that's definitely something on our radar between now and the November ballot. And then the other thing that I just wanted to address is I know in the past we looked at the community choice energy. It looks like based on the last, one of the last city of Carlsbad meetings, it looks like there was a report and it looks like it's on track to begin May 2021. So those are a couple of things that we looked at in the past, as well as going forward, if there's other ballot and measures we want to look at, you know, please reach out to us as a committee if there's anything else you want us to address. Thank you.
Great, Catherine, did you want to call out those 3 job killer bills that were on the agenda? The AB 2501, new lender regulations, there was a link to that bill. AB 2999, 10 days bereavement, and AB 3216, unlimited job protective leave due to COVID. We typically get these job killer bills from the Cal Chamber and discuss them. I know we're a little tight on time right now, but I just wanted to call those out, and I didn't know if there was anything additional that you wanted to share on those.
Sure. On the AB 2501, basically what that bill does, it requires financial institutions to carry mortgage and car payments for 180 days after COVID-19. So once again, it's putting the burden on some of the financial institutions. So this was a bill that we were looking at potentially to oppose. Once again, that's the AB 2501. And once again, that would put the strain on financial institutions. So that was one of the bills that we wanted to look at. The other one was AB 299, and that one was basically it imposes a new burden on employers of every size by mandating that employees get up to 10 days of bereavement leave upon death of spouse, child, parent, sibling, grandchild, domestic partner. And so under this bill, it was talked about it should be added to the California family instead of a new bill. So just kind of looking at some other options. And then the other one was the AB 3216. And what that one, just one moment, is basically on this one for, okay, this enacts a new 12-week emergency family and medical leave entitlement that applies to all employers regardless of size. Whereas in the past, there were some different criteria. And with this would add an additional 12 weeks. So that would then have employers give about 36 weeks of job protected leave. So once again, there's a lot of bills and things coming into place with this whole COVID-19, and as for small business owners, some of these changes could really drastically, hurt them. So these are just a couple of things that came up. Brett, I don't know if you have anything else to add. I know you kind of said on some of the Cal Chamber stuff. Is there anything else that I missed that you can think of that you'd like to add?
Yeah, you covered it pretty well. The leave one, Cal Chamber's just concerned about the burden because it was a protected leave that employers had to put on for COVID related stuff, which is it was super extended, and it didn't matter the size of your company. That could be a huge burden on, and the reason this is a issue is there's already special protections that were put in for COVID that came through the federal government. And so this would just add on even more and burden small business even more, if they were to have somebody with that situation. So that was the third bill that Catherine was just talking about, the AB 3216. And I agree with what Catherine said on the new lender regulations for AB 2501. It's just very onerous on our financial institutions to have to carry all that burden, forever. And I don't remember more details on the bereavement one, but yeah.
Great, thank you. And I was just now putting a note that I haven't posted yet because I couldn't find the link right now, but the Carlsbad Small Business Recovery Loan Program, since we didn't have Jason here, we didn't have a report on that, but I just want to let you all know that it's open, it's up and running, they're accepting applications, and I was just looking for the link right now. I couldn't find it right at hand, but that's available now. So our last item today is we run a tight ship here. You can see we're moving right along. We're good on time, and we've got Brett to give chamber updates.
Thanks, Teresa. So nothing huge to report. I know a lot of you participated in our virtual CBAD Award Week just a little over a week ago. So thank you so much for everybody who joined us for that. That was an adaptation from our award event, that luncheon that was originally going to happen in March. So we really appreciate those who participated in that. For us, we're in the midst of engaging discussions with our county supervisor, trying to get street fairs to be considered something more in line with farmers markets and not to be just lumped in with what's been called festivals, quote unquote. And the reason that's important is, you know, farmers markets are already opened and festivals have been labeled as stage 4, which is basically means there's got to be full-blown immunizations and all that stuff. So for us and for many other nonprofit organizations and other chambers in the area, you know, street fairs, and for a lot of small businesses, street fairs are a way that they promote themselves in a way that they generate revenue. And for the chamber, it's revenue as well. So we're working on that. And I appreciate Crystal and I had a email conversation yesterday, so we're getting that on the books. But I do want to throw out, Teresa, we have talked here that normally the Government Affairs Committee takes the month of July off because the chamber kind of looks at July, you know, it's a heavy travel month for people on vacation, and we kind of take a break from all our committees. But we're not going to do that this July. First of all, travel is a little weird anyways, and you should all be staying at home and spending your money right here in Carlsbad anyways. But we are going to have a July Government Affairs meeting, which the first Wednesday of July happens to be July 1st. So we encourage you to join us next month. And a couple of things we know we're going to have on that agenda. We're going to have the Visit Carlsbad proposal about how we're going to promote Carlsbad to try and reignite tourism, which is so important to our economy, and we're just getting really hammered by that. But number 2, we're also going to have the update on the housing element that is coming to the city of Carlsbad, and that plan's gone through a lot of progress. So we're going to have a presentation on that. And then number 3, we're going to have some presentations from some of our education institutions about what their plan is for school in the 2020/2021 school year. So we'll have a presentation from Miracosta, and we're hoping to also have Carlsbad Unified as well. So there's a lot of really important topics for us that will be on the agenda on July 1st. So I know that's not our norm to have a July meeting, but I wanted to point that out. And we will still continue to have virtual networking opportunities. I have a First Friday breakfast this week in 2 days. And of course, it's free to participate in that. There'll be a great presentation, which I don't remember the topic of at the moment, but it's always good, to be honest. But there's other networking opportunities. So stay involved, stay connected, stay engaged. Thanks.
Great. I'm so excited that we got so quickly through our agenda and we kept everyone tight and on schedule. We have a couple of minutes left. We've got 7 minutes till the hour, and I know there were some people who wanted to make very brief announcements on things that they're working on. The first one was John Osborne. Okay, I didn't get any others. Anybody else want to unmute and make a quick update? Give a quick update? No. Okay, if not, thank you all.
Oh, hey, I want to unmute real quick. I'm so sorry. It's Lynn with the Small Business Development Center. And I just want to tell everybody, utilize us. We are really helping small businesses navigate through this really crazy time period. So there's a lot of on-demand videos. There's a lot of one-on-one consulting going on. And we just cannot thank all of you enough for everything that you're doing to keep the community and small businesses up and running. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you also for posting in the chat. And you're always welcome to do that anytime. It helps us save time and make sure that people have links to direct information. So I'm so excited. We're out a couple minutes early. Thanks to everybody for your participation, and it's great seeing you. We'll see you next month on July 1st. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.